Good. What the hell's going on here? Sorry, one sec. It's just rolling on the cord there. I'm tired.
From what?
Earlier this week I had on Monday, I had a phone screening with the company, and then they gave me like a programming challenge thing. But and I could probably have had it done if I just did it in a very naive way the first day. But I've geeked out a bit because it's a gaming, or it's like a game type challenge, and there's an algorithm implementation bit which I haven't done yet, but I've used the algorithm before, so it should be pretty straightforward. But I decided to build out like this entity component system and try to do like a high performance entity component system as part of it, just to put more into it, because I don't know if they're looking for just the game to be simple, but they want to see, expandable structure, or if they're just literally wanted to look at the algorithm, which I don't understand, because like the algorithm's kind of a fixed thing. You can optimize it in a couple of ways. It's called the A-star algorithm. It's a pathfinding one. There's some ways to optimize it with priority queuing and stuff like that, but in a simple game on a small, there's like it's kind of a waste to optimize for it. So I don't know what they'd be looking at there. They said code readability and optimization, so I felt like I had to put in additional stuff to optimize. I don't know. It's odd, but I'm having fun doing it.
Well, at least you're having fun doing it. I usually, if they're not part of the big five, then I don't take tests. So just Google me. Like, do your research on me. All right, I have plenty of artifacts out there. All right.
Yeah.
If you're not willing to do that, and I put in the time for like the past, especially 5 or 6 years, to establish a professional web footprint. If you don't want to do that, then this is pointless for us to even talk, because it shows that I'm a commodity to you. And you're not really serious about what I can actually do for you. You're just trying to fill in a space. So F you.
Yeah. Well, I think in this context, though, in the gaming world, there's it's a different style of things, and I don't think the business software development stuff that really prepares you in any way for it, or is even correlatable. So it's like not. there's some stuff that you gain doing that, but the only reason I'm not totally floundering is the fact that I've done these Ludum Dare jams, and I've thought about this stuff, and then because I have a computer science degree, and I did data structures and algorithms, and I understand to a certain degree memory and CPU cycles and stuff like that. So it's not all just an limited resource bank. So, but the kicker is that I've been on and off for the last 6 years building, well, maybe 4 or 5 years, building like my own little toy game engine, and I just like rewrite it every few months or whatever, 6 months, for Ludum Dare. And I always felt like there was something wrong about it, because it wasn't never really high performance or whatever. There's some code reuse stuff you get out of it, but that's about it. So there's like a lot of complexity and whatever. And finally with this, I looked at, there's entity component systems, but there's also like what's called like a pure entity component system, which aligns better with maybe functional principles. Although it's not not functional, it's more imperative or procedural. But where you definitely split all the data from all the operations, and then it's almost like you construct like a high performance database in memory to make it so that you can get these entities and then operate over them quickly and then kind of put them back in. So it's a different paradigm shift, but something finally clicked for me for how you could structure this and actually have it work. So even the good thing about this is I don't know if I'll get the job. I doubt it. I'm sure that there's more qualified candidates out there, but the artifact that leaves behind from the code challenge I actually will use myself. So I'm going to take it out and refine it separately for the use of when I do these game jams and stuff. So it's not all just for them at this point.
That's cool. Hold up. So when are you gonna have it done?
This weekend for sure. I got the channel. I found that on I had the phone screening Monday, and they sent it to me Monday, but it was in my junk mail. So then I checked it the next morning. It was in my junk mail. So I got it on Tuesday. I started doing some research that night, and then Wednesday night I worked really hard on it, and then yesterday I went kayaking with my dad as kind of a belated Father's Day interaction thing, and then today is today. So that's the big thing I'm worried about. Is I actually would really like this job. I think because I think game programming in general, and I've talked about this with people before. I gave a talk and at CodeMash that kind of echoed this, was that game programming is a lot more intellectually stimulating than business programming, because the actual, you have to care about things like memory management, and you have to care about CPU cycles and performance, and you have to, within a fraction of a second, to achieve a good 60 frames per second or whatever, you have to compute, across, potentially thousands of different entities, and do it in a fast way so that you're not getting lag. It's a pretty intense challenge. And then there's parallelism that goes into it. And then if you add networking, now you've got potential IO issues that you have to deal with all to make this work. And it's just I could feel my brain cells starting to fire again. Yeah. after years of just kind of like, well, you read it from the database, you regurgitate it on the screen, then you put it back. So, and plus it's actually like, it's not so much web programming and stuff like that. It's actually more just hard programming challenges and having to think through, I don't know. I think the next job I get, I want the software to be the product of the place, I think, though, versus, and just in general speaking.
The next job you get, you want the software to be the product of the place. What does that mean?
Yeah, the company. So like, I've worked in distribution and manufacturing spaces where.
Oh, okay. You want to work for an actual software company.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. They work with their software is what they basically sell, or their capability is what they sell. But it's, they can't have their software be crappy or it won't sell. Well, they can if they're big enough, I suppose, and have enough marketing dollars. But yeah, I'd like to. I think I'll be bummed if and when I don't get to proceed to the next step on this. It'll probably be the culture interview. No, Just kidding. If I even make it that far, they'll see my code and be like, this guy took a simple programming task and turned it into a whole big thing. No, thank you.
What did you write it in?
C#. It's a C# position. So
I thought hardcore games were written in C++.
a lot of them are, and the stack I doing some research on it. The stack they're building with, they actually have their client is C#, and their back end is like the server is actually going to be Java. And that's because there's I believe it's because there's a certain community. The client itself is going to be more of like a closed source thing that you can't really build on. The server is supposed to be kind of customizable, and they're pulling from a market, a game market, where there's already a bunch of people who are used to modding the back end of something in Java. So I believe that's why they went that route, just putting it together. But and the reason why you tend to do C++ is because memory management is more in your hands. So one of the biggest issues with C# and game development is garbage collection. But there's strategies to kind of deal with that. One is just never make garbage, or make garbage very seldomly. So for instance,
that sounds like using functional programming concepts. So you do everything on the stack instead of on the heap, or no?
No, you still need heap memory, but it's but you don't. So you still need heap memory, but you don't really deallocate stuff. So instead of just newing up an object every time you need it, which you'll just put another thing on the stack, what you do is you just allocate basically a giant chunk of memory to shove those things in, and then you just manage the allocations yourself, kind of a thing. So for instance, there's this Ecs pattern in game development, the entity component system, and in a pure sense, what you do is the data you write everything in structs as value types or whatever. So you don't heap allocate those, and then you would generally create a giant array of them, or create a chunk of arrays or something like that. There's a bunch of strategies, but then when you allocate the array, you start populating stuff in it. You keep it all packed at the start of the array, and then when you actually access that chunk of the array, it pulls it out of memory in that spot. But the way that the computer will work is it'll pull the memory around it, which is all contiguous in an array, into cache. So if you're iterating over a bunch of entities that all have the same components in them, you do a pull from memory, one spot of memory, a bunch of data in that you're probably going to need in the operation you're doing. So you're optimizing for memory read. Like it's at that level. It's not about not just optimizing the disk to memory, which is about as far as you might get in business programming, or service memory to service. You don't have to go over the network, but it's like you want to get a big chunk of data into the CPU's cache, so that as you iterate over it, it's extremely fast. So it's I don't know. I've been geeking out about it. Now I'm interested in how really, how could you, optimize this stuff to make it just blazingly fast with no garbage collection, and so that the only thing that's ever slow is actually the rendering bit of it, which when you're dealing with I/O to the GPU, it's going to be the majority of what a frame actually spends doing. So
You've never been interested in how Rust handles that?
I might. I just haven't really had the need to go look at Rust. I mean, I'm fairly proficient in C.
I follow on Twitch. I'll follow a Twitch programmer as he's building out a game. Yeah, I don't know. I think Rust addresses some of the headaches that C++ left behind.
Yeah, and C and stuff like that. Yeah, I think if you're going for systems programming, unless you just want to use what you know, like if I was to start tomorrow and say I want to write, anything low level, high performant system type software, I'd probably, put it on myself to learn Rust. Or if I was asked to do it if I came into an organization and they said, we want you to build, something that needs to be high performant and close to the metal, I would probably say, well, you're going to need Rust developers. But I know that I haven't looked at Rust enough. I went to a conference talk on it, and I guess, part of the deal is that there's safe memory allocation and deallocation, which is the biggest problem in C, is to forgetting to free your mallocs, right? So, or null reference exceptions.
Why is it called malloc? Why is it called malloc?
It's a memory allocation.
Oh, how come it's not called memlock?
Well, that's a memory lock. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, malloc is
M
like
for memory, and then allocation.
Yeah, it's memory allocation. Yeah, so it's like your heap allocation. So if you're going to new up a C object, you'd use malloc or calloc, which I can't remember what calloc, what the C, if it's just for C or what, but it's more of a, I believe that's more for like arrays or whatever. But anyways, what it does is it initializes the array to 0 when you allocate it. That's right.
Which one do you think is a worse language, C++ or JavaScript? There's no such thing as worse, because it depends on what you're trying to do.
Well, that is true. Which one would I rather write in at this point? Actually, probably JavaScript. And the reason being is that I think C++. Well, I shouldn't say that. Like, if we can just do the basic C++, like they've just started to add in a bunch of stuff to it that like now I look at C++ code and I can't understand half of it, or I can understand it, but is
it functional now?
They've added all sorts of stuff like that, like lambdas and safe pointers and stuff like. It's gone a lot away from its C roots, but yeah, I maybe it's just JavaScript I know. But yeah, it depends on the context. I wouldn't use JavaScript to do certain things.
I can't believe, like, you may not know this. I used to be a C++ programmer. I did it for 3 years. I barely remember anything. Like, I was working in Microsoft Foundation classes.
Oh yeah, I did some of that.
So building some software, specifically the UI components with C++.
Did you have to deal with those macros for the event looping and stuff like that?
Well, yeah, there's your message loop or message pump.
Yeah.
And you have these H results. And
I had to do that.
I honestly don't know how I did that for 3 years, because I don't know C++. Like, I'm sure I knew like the basics. This was like 10 years ago. but I really did not like that language. I didn't like waiting for this 10 million. It was either 10 million or 20 million lines of code to compile. It would take like 20 minutes for it to compile. Like,
Yeah, it was there.
hold on. I'll tell you. If you Google RS Logix 5000, hold up, and it's probably obsolete now. I was a UI developer for that. Let me see. RS Logix 5000. I mean, it's pretty popular. If you look at the screenshots of the UI, it's very, what is it, battle gray.
Oh yeah, yep, yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, this looks familiar. Like I said, the first place that I worked, they had a C++ Windows client that, but they had actually built kind of their own UI system on top of it. So like you'd still use, the basics of this, but they had their own font that was a specific, so that every character could be specific, and it was almost terminal-esque, because it came from a terminal system. But man, that thing you could cruise through that because it was all command line driven. It actually wasn't mostly GUI driven. Um, it was kind of fun to write, but
It's weird when I'm looking at a screenshot of the user interface, because like I'm having flashbacks of the parts of this that I actually worked on. Wow, I can't believe my fingerprints are on that code that amusement parks use, pharmaceuticals use, assembly lines use. You ever think about the amount of people that interact with your thoughts through the code that you write, even if it was from like 10 years ago? Because
yeah,
that's what code is, right? Thoughts that you threw on the editor, and somehow someone is relieved of extra effort, or someone is cursing you out. So, and they're not really cursing you out; they're cursing at the program. But it's just, I don't know. It's just interesting. You pop a psychedelic, and then you really start to dwell on how people are using your thoughts from like half a generation ago. So, anyways,
yeah, yeah. I guess I do. I've occasionally thought of that. Like, wow, I wrote this little bit of code, and I know that it's used, for this, capability or whatever. And yeah, it's pretty neat. That's maybe one of the problems with my current situation is that it's like, at least in my old job for a while, until I got into the wrong spot, like, you know people never really, like, people would actually see and be happy when they'd finally get some piece of functionality that you gave them. Like, it was like, if you just made their life a little bit better every day, it was, that's a good feeling. And it kind of makes you want to keep going. But when you're kind of working on like a big internal project that's going to be released eventually, and no one's ever seeing it, you're never getting feedback about it. You're not actually making anyone's lives easier yet. It's a bit of a struggle. It's a bit of a struggle, to stay interested. So, but
what do you
yeah,
think? What do you think things are going to look like 24 months from now? I think it's going to be like, just in regards to the software industry and software developers and pay and expectations. I think it's a downward spiral. Like, I'm just looking at where we're going. I'm looking at the who's calling me for opportunities, how many hands those opportunities go through, like how many subcontracting staffing firms, and like I don't know. I think the programmer is going to be reduced down to computer technicians. That's how I feel we're treated now.
I don't think that that's the case. I'm more worried about market saturation than anything else.
That's what it is right now.
Well, we're getting there, but it's coming a lot slower than I thought it was.
Slower? I think we're there already. Like the tipping point for me was I had an interview with. There's a scheduled interview for I don't know, maybe it's a Fortune 1000 company about half an hour or maybe 45 minutes away from me in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
So in my same town. But I had to interview with a Indian company. Like I literally had to schedule like a late evening conference session just so that I could qualify for the interview that was down the road, and that kind of like struck me as why are we relying on global partners for local opportunities? And I just feel like it's getting out of hand now.
Hey, 1 second. My wife's calling me. I don't know if it's an
Okay.
emergency or not. So 1 second. It wasn't my wife. It was my daughter using Alexa to call as my wife. But I'm going to be real quick. I just have to literally go pick her up and put her over something. 1 second. I don't know. Somehow my kids learned that they could call us using Alexa. So now instead of just like coming to talk to us, they actually call us, even if we're in the same house. Like she was literally in the room right outside that door, and she's calling me on this thing to ask me to help her to get upstairs because the dog won't leave her alone when she leaves. And I'm like, just go upstairs. He'll follow you. That's what the dogs do. But it's now I'm starting to get annoyed with because this will happen. Like me or my wife will get called, and I'm like, why are you calling me? And we'll answer, and it's our kids like, hey, can you come in? I guess it's better. Like when I was a kid, my dad would be like, don't yell. If we were like, upstairs or something like that, and we needed to ask them a question, we'd just yell down the stairs. Yeah, it's kind of that thing. But now they're just like using technology to make it happen. It's weird. Mm-hmm. Sorry about that. Where were we at before that happened?
How I have a very
that's right,
pessimistic view of the next 24 months just based on local opportunities requiring a global gatekeeper.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't hit that yet. I don't think I'd probably be too receptive to it. But I mean, you could always pivot into something else. So far, the people that I've reached out to haven't been that way. I'm getting hit by contracting or not headhunting type firms in the U.S., but I think if somebody said you need to set up a schedule with outside contracting firm for an FTE type position, I would be a little like no. Like it'd be weird. Like if you it's kind of like if you were to come in to work with a client that I work with, but have to interview with my company.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that's not no. So yeah, I don't know, but maybe it's just because if they have a really large workforce in another country or whatever, and that's
No,
basically their outsourced IT department.
they take the lowest bidder of people that claim or profess that they really understand how to deliver high quality code. They're not responsible for providing a demo of high quality software that they delivered. No one know. Oh my God, you don't. No one. The people that are making decisions, throwing money around, and the gatekeepers that are responsible for following through on those decisions. None of them understand tech. None of them have tech backgrounds, except for Elon Musk. Like
Yeah,
so many people, like there should be a dedicated HR that has a tech background or some STEM background. HR should have a STEM background if their domain is tech. Right? No communications degree, no psychology degree, no basket weaving degree. Like if you're held accountable for filling positions in tech, then you should have a respectable STEM degree. Like I'm so tired of dealing with. Like, I'm venting right now because I'm getting annoyed and I'm getting so disappointed of where this industry is going and what I have to deal with
well, I think
after serving
isn't
like
that what they
20 years, and I still deal with people that have degrees in basket weaving, if they have a degree at all, basically preventing me from a job that I'm fully qualified for. But because I don't sprinkle fucking microservices and what say something DevOps and safe and whatever else, yeah, he doesn't have it. Quote, have it, as if I pull it out of my pocket. Like I'm going on a
sounds
rant
like you
right
might have
now.
had a recent.
No, it's just collecting up, and
Yeah,
I've been having some very severe mood swings within the past like 4 weeks. So a lot of things are becoming amplified now,
huh.
but it's just annoying me, man. And like
Yeah, I can see.
this is effed up.
But I thought that's kind of like what like the hiring managers are supposed to have like a technical understanding, and that HR is just a facilitator
Hiring
usually.
managers that again don't come from a STEM background, and would you unless you consider accounting STEM, and if it is, then that's not what I meant. Like I think accounting would be is accounting STEM. What STEM is what science? Because I mean, accounting is math,
Accounting's more of
right?
a business.
It's
There's a math
story
component to
problems.
it. Yeah, there's a math component to it, but it's mostly just addition and maybe percentages at times. But
But it's still a form of. This is me talking. Accounting is still it. I think it follows the same paradigm of programming.
no, it's
It-
more of a legal thing.
all right,
The thing is, accounting.
I'm going to humble myself. I have an associate's degree in well, my how does this work? My associate's okay. My associate's is in mainframe programming, but my minor was in accounting, so I
Yeah,
had a significant number of credit hours in accounting, in managerial accounting, and I forgot the other part of accounting. Um, you're you're taking, and it's kind of like physics. You're taking these large story problems, and you're methodically breaking them down, and then coming up with the answer. Is that different from programming, where you're coming up with a resolution based on a set of requirements, or AKA some story problem, and then you're dividing and conquer, and then taking the results of that, fastening it together, and then that's your result.
well, I'm not saying that there's there's not problem solving. I mean, if you weren't in, if you, it's definitely a professional degree. I wouldn't lump it into science, technology, engineering, and math. I wouldn't even, in some cases, I guess I wouldn't even probably classify some programming jobs as that either. Um,
For
But
T records, for debits and credits, yeah, I would agree.
the thing is,
But
it's an established system, right? You're learning an established system. Gap and stuff like that is an established way of understanding the world. It's more of, when it comes down to it, it's more about legal understandings of what you're doing.
general accounting principles, that's GAP.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
about that Sarbanes-Oxley.
yeah. Although, the thing is, a lot of accountants, a lot of accountants are programmers, though. If you take into account the fact that a lot of them are really adept at spreadsheets. If you get into formulas and building out formulas within a spreadsheet, you're doing programming. And some of them are really good at it and are probably could be programmers if that's what they wanted to do. So this isn't any knock on any accountants at all. My wife's an accountant. But I just, if you're talking about classifying it, I'd put it into the business. You never find it in a science, technology, engineering school, because it's purely it's always in the business school, because it has to do with that. Now, you could say business then would be a science and, a STEM if you're just looking purely at problem solving, because a lot of business is problem solving.
Yeah.
Now, marketing isn't, because it's more heuristic based, right? But even to an extent, there's, you're taking marketing principles and trying to figure out how to apply them, gathering the results of it, and then iterating. That's scientific in a way. So I guess that's STEM too. Yeah, and then so I don't know, what isn't STEM then?
Yeah. The reason why I mention it is because people that are the majority of gatekeepers for, I don't know about STEM in general, but especially for the tech industry, should not be gatekeepers. They shouldn't. They shouldn't.
Well, that's just the nature of. Well, I think you're just hitting on the point that the interview process is broken, and it's not broken. It's just a really hard problem to solve. How do you make sure that you're actually going to get good qualified people? Like, let's just say, for instance, that there's 100 of copies of you, and 99 of those copies have the same just digital footprint as you, but 99 copies of you don't actually know what they're doing. They're just throwing crap at the wall or copying from other people. And then there's you, who knows what they're doing. How do they tell the difference from an interview perspective? I think that's why they do these coding challenges and stuff, because it's harder to make stuff up.
The thing is they don't have digital footprints. Like, have you interviewed people?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did university recruiting, and we occasionally get full-time people to interview, or experienced people to interview.
When you interview full-time people, what percentage of them have their first page has numerous artifacts related to their profession?
Well, you mean on their resume?
No.
Or what?
Like, if you Google their name, do you Google people's names before you, for preparation for interviewing them?
Yeah, I might when I was doing it, I might, if it's somebody, not a college interview, but somebody coming out of somebody coming with experience. Yeah, I'd sometimes Google them, but if I didn't find them, I never really said, oh, well. Just because they're not active doesn't mean that, you could be a brilliant developer and have spent all of your time just using that brilliance in a closed space, right? Under NDA, where you can't talk to anyone about it. And then, yeah, and you've worked overtime on that and stuff like that. And then you have a family. So the opportunity to go out and spread knowledge of yourself is pretty limited. I think
I agree, but there should be something. If whatever your profession is, there should be some sign of it in 2020 on the web, right? So it's hard for me to accept that you're a senior developer, just senior. We're not even talking about principal. It's hard for me to accept that you're a senior developer and you don't work in some for the Fed, right? You don't work in sensitive areas that are trade secrets. If if you have XYZ years at I don't know, some IT department for some company, or if you've been a contractor, if that's what you profess, and again, you're not working on trade secrets, you're not working on highly sensitive projects, there should be some trace of you as a professional software engineer when I Google your name. It has to be. Else, whether it's Stack Overflow, like surely you asked a question on Stack Overflow. Like I don't even say answer the question. You've asked the question, right? And for there to be almost no social proof of you on the web for your profession, that's a flag to me. Now, do those people exist? Sure. But what's the likelihood that someone's a rock star and they have almost zero web footprint in regards to their profession? I would say it's very, very little.
I don't know. Like I said, I tend to think of it more as a plus. Like just I hold it, it works in your favor if I could find some other proof of what you've done and just that you've done cool things. But I don't really use it as like a knock against you, like, oh, you got to have this. Like, I don't want to go out to someone and be like, well, if you don't have a GitHub, account with a full green bar on it for activity, well, you're clearly not doing anything, or you clearly don't know how to solve problems. Stuff like that is, I think it's a different question. The way that I think of GitHub or Stack Overflow, well, specifically GitHub, is that the idea is that they play with software, and I think that that's a sign of somebody who's interested in it and has talents. But I don't say, well, if it's not there, you clearly don't like to code. You clearly don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to win
there's
this.
plenty of developers that have the other side of this. There's plenty of developers I've seen that have major web presence that have just been awful. So
Really, I was
yeah.
going to say, like, if you don't have a web footprint and you claim to be senior, it's hard for me to believe that you have a growth mindset. If you have a growth mindset, I should see something without knowing you. I should see some footprint of yours without knowing you. If you have a growth mindset, meaning if you really are a practitioner of software, I should see something. Again, Stack Overflow, I should see some artifact of some talk that you gave, or
But you may pour all of that energy.
you should show me your presidential library. Show me your library. What books do you read? What podcast? I should see something that tells me that you're actually interested in your profession and that you participate.
Hell
But
yeah,
if I
the
don't see
library.
that, what's the if we're talking like if we're using the mindset of insurance companies and casinos and we behave like actuaries, if we behave like actuaries when we're vetting candidates for employment, again with the mindset of actuary, we should know that there's a low probability of someone that doesn't have any web footprint that in 2020 that's going to be some rock star awesome engineer and doesn't work on some trade secret or some highly sensitive confidential project for the Fed or for the state. Like, what's the probability of them being a high performer? And I would say using the paradigm from casinos, insurance companies, the people that they hire to analyze when people are going to live and die, or which demographic is going to spend the most money and on what games, like those places succeed for a reason. And I think we should use the same mentality, or at
Well,
least borrow from it.
but I mean that's just coming from your experience, and that you do put a lot out there and you consider yourself good. You assume that everyone who does that is the same way. I think you'd have to actually collect information on how many people that do have a strong web footprint are actually really talented. So actually, Scott, I think Scott Hanselman wrote an article on this. It's
Dark
the
matter.
dark matter. Yeah. But they're just sitting there getting shit done. They're not spending all their time after hours putting together crazy stuff and trying to build up a web presence for themselves.
And who grades their ish? Like, you get something done, and then do you spend the remaining life of that something firefighting it? Like, that's not enough.
Well, yeah, but
Like, you
that's
know
in the
firefighters, I know firefighters. The management worships them because they think that firefighting is a good thing and that this person is so brilliant. No, this person has created these fires that your unplanned work, that's again emphasis on unplanned, that's going through the pipeline, the value stream, and like it just creates overhead. So I think there's so much more to dig into.
yeah. The thing is, I think in general, you could look at any one of these things and think of it as a completely different way, and it counteracts. So that's the whole thing. Is it's you won't really know whether someone's going to contribute value until you actually work with them. I think there's probably a ton of people that are exceptional developers that don't get jobs just because and have web programs or don't have web programs. It's just, you know, they don't meet they get screened out for whatever reason, and not even culture thing. There's a lot of people who fit culture well that aren't that great at development, that probably get jobs.
I want to hear the story about you said that there's some developers that have a phenomenal web footprint but are not that phenomenal when you look at the code that they write or the technical decisions that they make.
Yeah, I'm not gonna,
No, not, don't put the names
but
out, but
just in
like,
general, there's, I think that this is common when you see people come out of certain um, uh, boot camps, right? They have to put together. I think I don't know if it's just a side effect or whatever, but I think boot camps encourage people to build a web presence.
okay, that
And
makes
so
sense.
and so I've interacted with some bootcamp developers. I don't want to say all of them, and I don't want to say that you need to have a computer science degree to be good at it. But it's just that they might come out of this, and if you look at their web footprint, they look like they've done a lot, and they look like they're approaching senior level or something, just in that the sense you get and what they're interacting with. But then when you get down to actually the implementing stuff, they're really just first year college student that just finished CS1, and they're looking for their job. Like, they know how to sling some code, they know how to ask a lot of questions on Stack Overflow, they know how to
Right.
copy and paste from Stack Overflow.
They lack critical thinking in regards to design decisions, trade offs, iterating, stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
what do you think the core skill is that you've observed from these
Well, it's not
out
that
of boot camp?
it's not that they so much lack it. It's just that they just haven't developed it yet. I mean, and that's not any different than somebody who's coming out of college. Like, if you took someone who's just completed their CS1 program and put them in a job and expect them to just be a rock star, no, they might put out a lot of code, but then it's going to be firefighting, right? So this isn't a knock against them at all. It's just the fact that there's a disconnect between the web footprint and what that projects and what there's actually there. And it's not unique to boot camps either. Like, there's plenty of people going through normal college programs that are, that build up a lot of web footprint. The other thing here too is that this is a generational thing as well. There's a lot of developers that are older than in their 40s and 50s even, that might be absolutely have a wealth of experience to build on, but they didn't grow up in the generation where the web was where the web was the thing, and so that's kind of a bit of an, and I don't want to say it's like ageist, but it tends to value the youth over the experience of people as they get older. Like we're gonna be dinosaurs in 10 years, man. If we don't try to keep up. Like we had a guy at my last place we hired. He was in his 50s and he had been doing low level proxy work for a antivirus type program. Like he had just 30 years he had done computational security around network proxies at a really low level, and then the company either had around to layoffs, and now he's got to go look for a job. And he's going in, and he's like, you come into a place and they're like, here, write this algorithm. It's like, I whiteboard it. It's like, well, I could do that, I guess, but it's been how many years since I learned that? Like you're not gonna know it off the top of your head.
Write a B+ tree.
Yeah, I couldn't do
Write a
no
black tree.
Yeah, off the top of my head, no way I could do those things.
Or write a radix sort. Write a merge sort.
Yeah, even bubble sort. I don't even remember the context of bubble sort. I don't remember. Yeah,
bubble sort is you
swaps.
You take a line and you just keep decrementing +1 to leftmost position. So you just go like this.
But the thing is I learned that stuff, and I proved that I learned that stuff back in college by passing data structures and algorithms with an A.
Yeah, I had to take it twice.
But I didn't. The thing is, I've never exercised it in the last. I was actually thinking about this yesterday. A career in software development doesn't really prepare you for a career in programming. So, and there's a lot to unpack on that. But
it's the latter. It's both ways, right? Vice versa. A career in programming doesn't prepare you for software development.
Yeah, it's more like software development has programming is a skill that you use in it. And when I'm saying programming, it's more computer science or certain harder engineering, thinking about speed and the trade-offs between memory and computation and stuff like that, and to get performance and also thinking about algorithms and protocols for surviving outages, and being aware of things like being IO bound versus CPU bound and memory bound, like all of these kinds of stuff. 99% of normal everyday software, you don't have to think about any of that. It's just assumed that it's just all going to work and be fast because you're not writing anything that complicated.
Have you ever looked at someone's code, got so upset that you took the rest of the day off?
Looked at the code and done that? No.
I did it like 3 weeks ago. Like, do you know anybody with OCD?
Not real OCD, no. Not diagnosed.
Okay.
My I've seen people that have exhibit signs or whatever, but never really diagnosed. Like my wife's sister growing up had a compulsion that she had to go wash her hands after every certain, I don't remember what it was. For a while it was really obsessive, but then it just went away. So I don't know if that was even it.
Mine is I think I probably shared this. The volume of the television or of music, if the volume is represented in digits, it has to be an even number or a multiple of 5.
Well, that's just regular compulsion or whatever. It's not obsessive at this point. You don't go to every TV in you don't like walk down the street looking for TVs to fix.
No. It's whatever is in front of me. I used to, when I would be at like convenience stores, it wasn't too bad, but I would catch myself doing it. I would bring all the cans to the front and front them so that their logos are facing. And at malls, for clothes that are falling off the hanger, I would spend a couple minutes making sure that the entire rack of clothes are all hung correctly. I'll do other people's jobs. All right.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that too. I mean,
And,
just it's more of a fidgety thing than it is a obsessive compulsive.
but like in the code base, all member variables of classes have to have an underscore. All our local variables within a method has to be lowercase. And like they have to be Microsoft conventions. And you won't believe how many times I format everything and then people will occasionally undo my format and I'll just start going ballistic. But anyway.
Yeah, I can see that though. But yeah, you would have hated you've hated my last place then, because there was a bunch of C code where people were kind of working in not silos but verticals, and they all had their unique style, and there wasn't a standard convention. And so, this person wrote code with underscores and lowercase, and then this person wrote it with more camel case. And then there was that person who was the worst person, who would do underscores and uppercase, like camel case. Like,
I'll be turning
I'm
this
not
camera
kidding. It would
Jackson.
be like, if it was a thing like add customer to database, it would be like maybe lowercase underscore capital C customer underscore capital T. It would just be like, oh, I hate this so much. Luckily, I found out, because whenever I'd have to refactor a module or something like that, and I think there's maybe some editors that have this now, but the editor in OpenVMS called LSC had this feature where you could do replace, and you could make it like case. Well, never mind. This is just normal stuff. I'm thinking of something else. But anyways, yeah, I would just do a replace and just do a case, just lowercase everything, because we eventually actually went, established after a while that, hey, you know what, we need standards. So I put like I did a lot of that stuff early on. Like, hey, why don't we just have a standards doc on here's how we write C code? And it's more of like it's a suggestion. It's like, feel free to break this if you have a reason to.
What amazes me is, and it's possible that I'm the one that's off, is why am I so anal about conventions? And the answer is because when you're working within a 2,500 to 3,000 line class file, and you're trying to troubleshoot this triply or quadruply nested statement or block of code, and you're hovering over, there's probably like 50 different variables that are declared in that method. Now, let's say 100 different variables that are declared in that one method. And I'm trying to, and all these variables are exactly that, variables, meaning that they could be mutated at any time. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, is this state, is this like member state? Is this local state on just the method itself? And I end up spending so much time trying to figure out at what scope of change or impact is this value going to be? And like, I feel like some people, they just don't care. They don't realize that I have to start going through all these definitions just to try to troubleshoot and debug something. And if you had conventions on there, I would spend less time debugging because I know what that role of that variable is based on its level of scope. So
Yeah. Well, I guess if you have a big procedure or method, then it's kind of messed up. If it's small, you can just look at the signature and figure out what's in or what not to know whether it's. But yeah, if you got something big, I guess it's kind of a good luck thing. That's why you just make every have everything localized to the function, not deal with anything global.
Of course, I still don't know why in F sharp there's no underscore convention for member variables.
I don't know.
Well, it's not member variables, but for member values, for module values. How about that?
Yeah. The client I work for now doesn't. Their convention was to not use underscores.
Why?
I don't know. They do use this in places. Like I think some of the ones teams have this
I hate
as
that
a requirement, but I was thinking about this with because I hate static analyzers for style. I absolutely just hate them. Like if it's smart enough to know how it wants me to format it, it's smart enough to just format it that way for me instead of just yelling at me about it. And this is more of a political question, but I wonder if Style Cop will change its name at some point. Style Policeman.
Well, you heard that thing about was it GitHub?
Changed from master to main.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess I don't know.
They're changing the name from master to what?
I think it's main, maybe. I don't know. I haven't created a new GitHub.
I thought that was a bit overboard.
Yeah, I don't see. Well, that's the thing with languages. I don't know. I don't think it came from master slave. Like there's such a thing as a master copy, and it's not a. As far as I know, it's not a master slave connotation. It's just the master. Yeah, I don't know, but maybe that's the way it. Maybe the roots of that is there and it's triggering for some people or whatever. I don't really know.
Those people have issues if it's triggering for them. Like it is.
But yeah, I guess I don't know. I when I listen to stuff that I wouldn't have thought of when I listened to you were talking with, or no, it was Dave Rail interview with gosh, he's your buddy.
My buddy?
Maybe. I think you've talked to him too. Is it Terrence? Maybe?
Terrence McGee?
Yeah.
I'm going to put on Twitter, deplatform Archie Bunker.
What?
You know who Archie Bunker is, right?
Yeah.
We're going to deplatform him. AKA Chief Gillespie, Heat of the Night. I grew up on all that stuff. Well, I didn't grow up on Archie Bunker, but I grew up on In the Heat of the Night.
Yeah, but he was talking about how there was like this situation where where they were trying to figure out what icon to use for the help, whatever, and somebody thought about putting a policeman as the sign of help, and and that I guess there's some reasonableness for that if you've had positive, but he was saying that no black person would think to go to the policeman for the help. And I'm not sure that that's a broad generality, but that's what he basically said. And I never thought about it that way, is that people just culturally have different, expectations around things like that. So I guess I can see that master would be triggering to some people. I just don't know if master's really rooted in that term of the slave master relationship kind of a thing, but I don't know. Interesting stuff, though.
I'm actually writing this right now. What do you have planned for next week?
I got to get done with this coding challenge. Then I actually have another one that's through HackerRank. It's sort of like a 90-minute constrained test thing for another place I'm gonna try to get done. And then I've got a call with a recruiter today at 11, and I don't know. I'm just gonna keep searching for my next gig.
All right, I'm gonna try to make this really, really quick. Short story. Uh, I posted I posted on Twitter that I'm available to help underrepresented folks in software development. And then usually when I do that, someone usually DMs me, and I decided to observe my past, the past times that I've done this, where someone says that they would like some mentoring, and I get kind of fully invested in them. Like, all right, I'm gonna make this person my protege, and then like they just life happens to them, right? After like the third week, and I'm like, hell's bells, man! I could have used that time to groom someone that really is committed, but I just wasted 3 weeks of my life on someone that is analogous to, oh, I would like to lose weight, right? But like, so make long story short, I said, yo, I got to have a vetting process in here because this is happening way too often where someone is asking me to take time out of my schedule and out of things that I want to commit to, in which I want to give back because I'm a jerk, right? So I want to give back. I want to be able to at least die and feel good about some things that I did well for improving the community. And so I'm like, F that. You want my help? All right. I need you to read this book. Once you read this book, which is X unit test patterns, then we can begin our journey on addressing any questions and going through some exercises with you because he wanted to learn about unit testing. So I was like, all right, here's this 500-page book. Let me know when you can finish reading it, and then we could talk. And so that was my vetting, right? If he reads the book and he tells me he read it, and we can go over the summary of what he learned from it and what questions he has, then that's kind of a sign that he's committed. This will probably, it took me an entire weekend to read that book. It'll probably take him maybe a couple weeks if he's doing it on his off time. A couple weeks went by. I DM'd him, hey, how's it going? He didn't respond. 2 days later, hey, just checking up. Didn't respond. And I messaged him one last time saying, hey, I'm not sure what happened to you. I hope all is well. Hope nothing happened to you. And that was it. And then he responded, oh, thanks, bro. I'm like, so how's your reading coming along? He's like, I couldn't afford the book. He said it was $100. Now this person is in like Ghana, Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I could understand if the wages they make there versus the wages we make here are significant, or less significant. You know what I mean.
Yep.
But I also believe like if there's a will, there's a way, and so someone that's committed is going to demonstrate resourcefulness. They're going to be like, okay, the book doesn't cost $100, right? I'm not sure what currency he was talking about. It doesn't cost $100. The hardbound book may cost $50 or $40. That's probably brand new. A used book will probably cost maybe $35. A Kindle, I can't see it costing more than like $27. But again, I make US wages. Someone in Ghana probably makes a fraction of that. I understand that. Or I think I understand that. But someone that is worth grooming and being a predecessor is going to be more resourceful instead of tapping out and not even let it be known what their barrier to entry is to getting help.
Yeah, well, I guess minimally they could have said, I can't afford the book. Can you help me out? Or do you know if there's a resource that will get books like this for people in my situation?
Yeah. So in a way, like my
Just
plan worked, but I was
just
also like
honest.
my plan. So my plan worked in regards to like vetting to figure out who's really committed, but it also kind of like bothered me. Like I kind of feel disrespected. Like why would you get my feelings up and then waste my time when I'm offering like my time for free? And I don't know if it's because people are just younger and they're not that developed to really understand the impact of asking for other people's times and investments. But it pissed me off, man. I mean, I didn't let them know that, but like that disturbed me. Like I'll go out of my way if there's something that I want and I want it. Like I go out of my way to figure out how to get it, and I voice my concerns to the universe, so the universe or the people under it somehow someone knows someone that knows someone that knows someone that can give me a tip on how I could get a step closer, right? Some people, man, I think they literally want things in their lap and they expect other people to take time away from what they're doing just to give it to them. And it just annoys me. So,
You've got to you just got to start a motivational speaker channel where you give hard advice. You know,
have you ever
you
had
need
something similar?
where I've had someone flake out on me. You mean, or
Well, where someone asked you for help and you were prepared to make that investment to help to give back, right? Because right now, like the country's hurting, the world's hurting, and so if we have knowledge to increase other people's well-being, um, we should strongly consider it, right? Why
yeah,
wouldn't we? As long as it's not affecting our families or severely impacting what we currently have going on. And I just feel like, well, my question is, have you had a similar experience, or have you been so busy that your the time that you have, because you have a lot more responsibilities than I do, just doesn't afford you to uh, assist people outside of your family?
no, I've had opportunities to help other people. I mean, even just teaching that college course. You know, one of the students is like, we'd have assignments and they pretty simple assignments really, or small assignments, and a week later it's not done. They didn't work on it, and it's like, I know that life happens, but it, it's like you're gonna, because you didn't do this, now we have to kind of like catch you up before, and you're causing undue harm to the other student who did get their stuff done. So, but so I mean, I've had that kind of stuff happen. I'm trying to think. I don't know if I've ever had someone in the exact position with you where they just ghosted you after a while. They're like, I'm just not gonna do
This
this.
isn't the first time. This is the third time in probably 1.5 years that this has happened to me.
Yeah, yeah. You just need to find a school where they have to pay you. Then they'll be committed because they gave you money. You
Yeah,
could call it Scott's School for Gifted Youngsters.
they'll pay me, and I'll make sure that what they're paying me is going to go to Black Girls Code or something.
Well, you could frame it that way, that they have to pay you a sum, and if you feel like they've completed your whatever, then you give it back to them. If not, it goes to a charity. You call it a day. Then there's a barrier to entry. People won't do it unless they're really serious.
Yeah.
Or in the worst case scenario, they do it. They think they're serious. They're not, and you help a charity. So it's like win-win, right? For you in terms of giving
Yeah.
stuff.
All right. Well, it's been real. Thanks for taking the time to acknowledge me being confused about human behavior. So
Really, did you do anything with your project this week?
yeah. So
I know we're over, but
I I completed on the server side the holding funds of a customer's bank card, and then charging those funds or finalizing it. It's called capture on Stripe API. I completed all that. My tests are all written. They all passed. I then wired up my courier service to when a courier declares that a customer has been verified, aka delivered, then the courier service calls my card transactions service to finalize payment. The customer application, when the customer places an order, regardless of if any couriers are available in the area, um, the customer's card gets a hold placed on it for that particular amount. So, yeah, that's what I did this week. Last night, I was making sure that my customer app can still run in disconnected mode, meaning not connected to the internet, and it errored out because it's still trying to call the bank card transaction service. So I need to retrofit that transaction service into behind an interface that is used for disconnected operations only. Um, that's progress that I made. Next week, I want to be able to demo placing an order, and then from my test harness, which I think I had this working, execute courier accepted, which I think I got that working like a month ago. And then if that still works, then send another message from my test harness to the customer app saying that arrived at the pickup location. Once I get that nailed, then all the other following notifications from a courier service should just work, and my customer app should just keep receiving notifications of status updates, and that's it. So,
cool.
yep. All right. Well, it's been real. So thanks, Sean.
Yep. See you.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, everybody. Peace. Unless you want to ask any questions for the next couple of minutes, I'm about to hop off and start working on my gainfully employment gig that I'm forced to do to pay my bills. So I guess I'll wait maybe 30 seconds. Nope, one person left. Wait 30 seconds before I drop off if anybody else wants to chat on here. 29, 28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm out. Thanks for watching. Peace.